call to order the February 9th, 2021 regular meeting of the Nelson County Board of Supervisors. Stand for a moment of silence. Mr. Rutherford.
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start public comments, I'd like to recognize Claire Richardson, who has an announcement for us.
Good afternoon. I am the bearer of good news today. The Blue Ridge Tunnel project received a national award from the Coalition for Recreational Trails. A total of 12 awards were given out, and we are the only recipient in Virginia to receive an award. The tunnel won in construction and design category, and a major qualifier and prerequisite for the award is that you had to have received recreational trails program funding, which we did in 2015 for a total of $425,000. So it's kind of a big deal. So I just wanted to congratulate Nelson County and the staff who've been working on the project for so long. We truly are fortunate to have this recreational and historic amenity in Nelson County, and that's evident not only due to this award, but also because of the high visitation levels that we have to date. So, congratulations. Here's your award. Okay.
Thank you, Claire. Great news, well deserved. Thanks to everybody who came along before I did that did so much hard work.
Yeah, Claire actually recommended that we submit that application, and she did the work, so a lot of kudos to Claire as well.
Okay, it's now time for public comments. Want to give you the rules for public comments. When you come to the microphone, please speak in the microphone, give your name and address. You have 3 minutes to say what's on your mind, so please be clear and concise. Address the chair with your comments, and it's always best not to expect whatever it is you talk about unless it's already on the agenda to be discussed. Normally, we do not respond directly to comments from the public. So I'd like to open the public comment period. If anybody would like to come forth and address the board.
Oh, I have a list.
First, we have Edith Napier.
Sorry.
Good afternoon. I'm Edith Napier, address 43 Napier Loop, Arlington, Virginia. I live in the West District. I too would like to congratulate Clara for the distinctions that award that plaque brought to Nelson County. That's a great thing. I thank each of you for all you do and allowing me this time today. As a board member of the Nelson Heritage Center, I come before you on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Millennium Group of the Nelson Heritage Center. It was at one of your board meetings last year when a representative of the Virginia Health Department came before you requesting assistance in locating a long-term home for the Nelson branch of the Health Department, which would offer sufficient space for their mission. We heard their request and responded in the same manner we have responded to other needs in the county, such as partnering with the food banks to have 2 food banks at the Heritage Center, partnered with Unity and Community and have a furniture minister at the Heritage Center, and allowing COVID-19 testing at the center and flu shots be given. We are part of the county, and when there is a need, we try to provide assistance because we are thankful for the Nelson Heritage Center, and it is a place where the community can come together. The Heritage Center contacted the Virginia Health Department and have been working diligently with their General Services Administration Department to offer them an exceptional long-term option for their facility. We are working with an architectural firm that provided estimated costs of the renovation based on the health department's requirements and the present layout of the space at the Heritage Center. They have conducted space fit tests, presently in the construction drawing stage. With the established construction timeline with a completion date of January or February of 2022. We are working diligently to be able to offer appropriate space for the health department at the Nelson Heritage Center for the benefit of the citizens of Nelson County, a place that is only 5 minutes from its present location. It was noted that during the budget planning session last week, there was discussion of a need for the Department of Social Services and the Health Department to be located in the same facility. As a member of the Nelson County Department of Social Services Board, I can truly attest to the great and urgent need of appropriate office space for the mission of the Department of Social Services. However, there is no mission requirement for the Department of Social Services and the Health Department to be co-located. In fact, I did a survey of all the counties in the Blue Ridge Health District. That's the Charlottesville, Albemarle, Savannah, Greene, Louisa, and then Nelson. And I was advised that the departments are separately located because they have separate and different missions. Therefore, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Nelson Heritage Center, I am requesting that the Board of Supervisors issue a letter of endorsement for the Nelson branch of the Health Department to be located at the Nelson Heritage Center. Thank you, and if you have questions, I am available. The chair of the Millennium Group, Reverend Rodney Sandage, is available. Board member Larry Stopper, or any other board member would be happy to provide any additional information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Grace? Okay. Right, Arlene Hudson?
No.
Okay, thank you. Danny Harris?
Hello, Danny Harris with Java. I do work here in Nelson County, so don't pick me out yet, but I live in Madison Heights, 100 Oak Hill Drive. But I just wanted to give a little report on Java and what we've been up to since the last time I spoke to you all. And still doing a lot of virtual things. We really amped up our virtual calendar with, so pretty much every day of the week, people not only seniors, not only here in Nelson County, but in all the other counties can get on and do bingo or chair exercises or devotions or any number of things. That's actually been a really good thing for our members specifically that have participated in that, because they've been able to connect with seniors in other areas that they may not have been able to connect with otherwise. So there's silver linings to all of this. We are tentatively right now planning to reopen again March 1st. As the time gets closer, depending on what the numbers are looking like and how things are looking, that may change, but that's the plan right now. And we are still providing home delivered meals to folks in the area that need it as well. And not just folks who are affiliated with Java, but anyone who needs it. And I think that's about it. And I just thank you all so very, very much for all your support. And the care that you've shown to Java, especially in these hard times. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to participate in public comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public comments and move on to the consent agenda. I'd like to add to the consent agenda Resolution 2021-07, which was circulated among the Board of Supervisors prior to the meeting. Recognition of the county emergency services agencies. There's no objection to that. Looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda with the addition.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Grace?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for fiscal year 21 to 26, the secondary 6-year plan for Virginia Department of Transportation in Nelson County. Hello. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Chairman Reed. I think you all have copies of the FY 21 construction budget. This is the same budget as last year when we approved the complete 6-year plan. This budget you're looking at today is simply the second year, exactly as it was approved in 2019. And as you can see, there's a lot of projects in here. Many of them have been completed. The first project is Aerial Drive. That construction has been completed. And the only reason it's still in the budget because we haven't closed it out financially. We have to keep them in the budget until they're closed out financially, but that's okay. But it is completed. Greenfield Drive construction is completed. Jacks Hill Road is completed. Rue Hollow Road has been completed. Rue Hollow Lane has been completed. Emily's Gap has been completed. Carter Hill Road, that was completed last year. Bottoms Lane has been completed. Shields Gap, we completed the initial, what was in the plan, but we found out our state maintenance went about 300 more foot beyond where we had marked that. So we will go back and hard surface that 300 feet to give those residents, access to a hard surface road. That was an error on our part, but we are going to correct that. High Peak Road is under construction. It's under construction. We did not finish that last year, but everything is clear for it to go ahead. And next on the list is Cedar Creek Road, Wilson Road, another section of Campbell's Mountain Road, and a section of Norfolk Road. Those are the unpaved roads or rural rustic projects that have not been completed yet. And then, if you look on the second page, these other projects, we have like a budget item that we always carry for countywide engineering and survey. We have a countywide item for right-of-way engineering. We have a countywide item for traffic services. And this, we use this fund a whole lot. I'll just give you this information. This is the secondary road funding that we use for putting up new signs throughout the county. Any traffic related items, if we need to put up something special, like a blinking light at an intersection or something on a secondary, that's what we use these funds for. And then there is a countywide drainage item. We would use this for drainage improvements on secondary roads that will, come to light if we, replacing pipes or have a pipe. Something that's not really maintenance, more of a replacement, or new pipe or something. That's what we would use that for. But it's pretty straightforward. It's like it's always been. And just for your information, at this time, we're not going into doing a full revision of the priority list for unpaved roads. Most of you are familiar with that. I think I've shared that with all of you. We will go through this process more formally, like we traditionally have in years past, to go through maybe having a work session in April. Might even do it in April, maybe, to have a work session to see what you all want on this new revised list when we update this list. We've been working off this list for several years, and we've just about depleted it. So that will be coming in April. Process will start in April, and probably look to present you with a draft 6-year plan for the new year in May, and schedule another public hearing at this time. But this is the main purpose of this hearing today, and our budget approval process is really simply to get an FY21 budget put to record. And that's really all we're doing here today. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone has.
Yes. So aerial drive, you did the total amount, and I imagine Hunting Lodge to aerial?
Yes, we started out, Mr. Rutherford, we were
Yeah.
going to do a portion of it, and after we got over, I said, and I think we talked about it, we agreed that we needed to revise our project to do it all. And, that's something we need to talk about. In the past, we've done just what we needed to do to maybe cover most of the houses. But what's happening, we're having a hard time getting back to finishing the entire road. And to be quite honest with you, it always costs more money because there's more material. But, I'm kind of the opinion that we can do a whole road while we're there. We need to do that because, if you do half a road and you got constituents that live on the half that doesn't get paved, they're not a happy camper. And I'd be the same way if I were in their shoes, So that's just my thoughts, but.
I do know, and I guess this is just for the 2021 plans. I know I gave you several different roads, Whippoorwill and Ball Mountain, and those. Are those going to be on the next round, or what is VDOT's position?
When we revise the plan, we'll see how they fit into the money.
Okay.
I did bring this up, but we actually are going to have to talk about one project in the plan when we revise it again, and that is Wilson Road.
Okay.
We've got a substantial, that project is up. Road is up to be hard surfaced. And as many of you know, we are scheduling a bridge replacement over there. And we need to talk about that to see if we want to pave that road before the bridge replacement, or if we want to hold off until after that to keep all the construction traffic off of it that will probably damage that road up with all the materials coming in there.
Sure.
But that's something we can talk about, offline. and my point being, if that project, if you all choose to move that project, if that's the agreement and the consensus, that's gonna push up, advance all the projects behind it a year or two. So it would have a big impact, and don't know if all the citizens over there want that road paved or not. Been hearing a little bit of, and maybe they want it to remain unpaved, but that's just what you hear, so.
What do you think, Skip?
You know, I'm thinking, I quite understand what you said. You said if you pave the Wilson Road, it'll push things up.
Yeah, I meant if we delay that project until after the bridge is reconstructed. It's,
I'm trying to think about how many houses are on that road. I mean,
it's not a couple.
because after the bridge,
Maybe
I
one.
can't think of any.
I think it's one, I rode through it the other week.
I'm thinking that this is, they have always signs up for, locking that's a back entrance in locking. Is that why the priority is, I don't see it.
That was part of it. That was the main push on was Lockheed, because that is a alternate route that can be used for Lockheed. I think that was the driving force.
Yeah.
With it.
I know some people come from the river, go along Rucker Run and take that turn to get back to Livingston. And so, that's saves a little bit of time, but that's the only use of that road that I can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know other reasons why. I mean, Wilson's not a high traffic spot. You gotta, unless you're going there to get your prom photos on the
But people
bridge.
do down on the river, go up, along Rucker
Oh,
Run
I see.
and take that right turn.
But it's scenic now.
It is scenic, and you say there's that one house on it, I don't know of any,
I mean, if
And
one,
It's mostly, it's not local, it's cut through traffic. It's not the residents, but it did have a traffic count of 60, so, it's certainly.
60 over how long time?
I mean, that was probably a 2017 count.
Yeah, but when you say 60 vehicles, how long?
Over a 24-hour period,
it's,
I'm surprised that many.
yeah.
but, we've got
Was
that.
that during hunting season?
Could be. I don't know, Mr. Rutherford, it could be, but.
If it was done then yeah.
And what I meant by if we delay this project, it's funded at $461,000. So, if we push this back, some other projects are coming forward. So, but that's, and I just share that with you for information. I don't expect any direction today.
Well, how much is locking, are those guys put Infinity Downs? I mean, they always have a sign up there, but I never see anybody, and sometimes there's a police car down there to make sure people don't go in that way.
Mhm.
But I can't.
I agree with you on that one, Skip. I don't know if Wilson's even, just pragmatically looking at it, I don't know what.
But we can, we don't, that's a discussion you all will have to have with Tom yourselves and.
So you're thinking of April.
So certainly wouldn't, not asking for a decision today, just bringing it up for information.
Sure.
But the bridge is going to be built.
That's already, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that already built?
No, we are if I'm not mistaken, we're just concluding what they call the 106, and that is the historic, the cultural resource historic preservation process. We have to go through that since the structure is on the National Historic Register. Once that is completed, it will move fairly fast. We're not acquiring any additional right of way. We're going to build a bridge within the 30-foot prescriptive easement that is there. So it won't really have a right of way phase. And so we'll basically go from preliminary engineering to construction phase. So that will shorten the project delivery time quite a bit.
I can't even remember. Do the Wilsons live on the other side of the bridge? Do they live on the other side of the railroad? I think they do. That there is a couple of houses there. There are.
I'm not sure, Mr. Barr.
We can discuss this.
Yeah, does anyone have any other comments that are specific to the 6-year plan? Because if we do have a public hearing, I'd like to have that now, then have you come back for more general comments.
Yeah, I have no problem proceeding as presented, then we can arm wrestle in April.
Okay.
Right?
I'll call you back after the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Now I will open the public hearing for the VDOT FY 21-26 secondary 6-year plan. Anyone like to speak to that? We'll close public comment.
Mr. Chairman, you looking for a motion?
I am.
Mr. Chairman, I like to, for us to proceed with the FY 21, FY 26 secondary 6-year plan R 2021-06 as presented.
Second.
Okay. Your motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Great.
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Brown, I'm going to get you one more time, man. Mr. Parr, do you have any issues to address with Mr. Brown?
Nothing new that we haven't already discussed. No.
Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, did you have a further report that you wanted to give us? That you didn't cover already?
The only thing I wanted to talk about was the through truck and trailer restriction on Reed Scout. It has been approved. It has been approved. And I think I know the Augusta County, they have put up their signs and we are putting ours up. They should have been put up. They were either put up yesterday or they were going up today. We have them covered. I'm thinking they will be uncovered either at the end of this week or the first of next week. We're still working, to give businesses a little bit of time to make preparations to find an alternate route. I worked with Maureen Kelly to get out a message to the businesses that she regularly communicates with, to get the word out to them. And also been reaching out personally to some of the businesses that I know would be affected, to talk to them, to see if there's anything that VDOT can do to help them in dealing, in getting their freight deliveries. We do have the alternate route. I mean, if you read the press release, the alternate route, obviously you can go up 64 to 29 in Charlottesville and come back down because that's unrestricted. 250, 151, and 6, they do have a 65-foot restriction on them. And that is my message to the businesses that I've contacted. You can get a permit from DMV that will allow you to travel those roads and not be ticketed. That is possible. It's not a long drawn out thing. In fact, I have a contact in VDOT that is kind of working as a liaison with DMV should they have any problems and not getting the permit in a timely manner. So, but the signs are up, they're covered, and again, we should uncover them either late this week or the first of next week. But we did want to allow some time for business to adjust to that restriction.
Where are the signs on our side?
Pardon?
Where are the signs on our side of the mountain?
There are signs on 151 on our side of the mountain, And there will be a sign on our side of the parkway, as you come across the parkway in Nelson County. And of course, there are signs over in Augusta County at Mount Tory Road. There are multiple signs over there. So, this will certainly help out. Is it gonna eliminate all the hangups up there? Are trucks gonna still come across there? There's still gonna be some probably. And, but I did wanna report, I am working to make a physical improvement in the acute curve, on the Nelson side of the parkway, right adjacent to the parkway. I hope to have that completed by now, but I have gotten hung up on a couple of issues with right of way and with, getting the environmental clearances. But it is our intention to do significant widening on the outside of that curve, outside shoulder, and as soon as we can do it, as soon as the weather permits. It's also our goal, that when the weather breaks and we get back into paving season, just come in there and do a final paving in that area to take some of the super elevation out of that curve, because that is as big of a problem with the trucks getting stuck as anything. The super elevation is so extreme that it takes the weight off one side of the vehicle and they become immobilized. And it makes them pull down to the lower side of the curve. So we do plan on doing that, but it hadn't happened. It's hard to get stuff like that done when you're in the middle, when you're in the winter, when you have snowstorms, but it's gonna happen. Looking back, I was at the shoulder closures, just looking back from last month's concerns, I think the fiber optic folks that have been putting in the cable along 29, I think they're out of the county now, but they were shut down.
Wow.
They were shut down. Jesse, you mentioned me the cold and shoulder closure on 694 Naked Creek. I sent that to our superintendent. I haven't heard back from him, but usually when I send them something, they look at it to see if they can fix it immediately. That's all I had from last month.
Anything else? I have one thing. Heard from a constituent, the other day about, the end of Davis Creek Road, where it goes from being paved to non-paved. Davis Creek Road. And, quite a few residents up there that, are interested in seeing that paved. And wanted to get that on your radar screen to take a look at it and see how it fits into what we might be doing in the future.
Well, when we did the last section, when we did that Prairie Lane. We added significant stone to that unpaved section of Davis Creek. If you all wanted to push that up, pretty much the only thing we have to do is go in there and shoot it, put the asphalt and stone hard surface on it. We did a lot of work to that road when we did Prairie Lane, so if y'all want to put it in there as a quick item, it would not be much work. Hard surface that road.
Good to hear. Jesse and I talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I got a bunch of family up there that they
Okay.
talk about all the time. Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Brown, thank you so much.
Thank y'all very
Always
much.
good to see you.
Yes, sir. Good to see y'all.
Thank you and Augusta for all your work on Reed's Gap. I know that was a group effort.
Okay, we're moving on to new and unfinished business. Dylan Bishop from the planning department is here to talk about 2 draft ordinances that we have.
Good afternoon, thank you. I know Steve had mentioned possibly postponing this discussion until all the board members could be here. We're happy to go over it today and another time, completely up to you guys.
Any comments?
I'm fine with proceeding as is. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
So I'll go over non-conforming ordinance as proposed, and Emily, she's been working on the solar energy ordinance, so she'll go over the solar energy with you guys. Back in 2019, a few short months after I was hired here in the county, the planning commission discussed the initial draft of the non-conforming ordinance. We provided them a flow chart that gave a couple of options. One option would have a non-conforming structure. After 2 years, it would be required to be demolished, relocated, or receive a variance. And the other option was after 2 years, the non-conforming structure could be used for permitted use in the zoning district in which it was located. After some discussion, staff was directed to revise the draft ordinance to reflect the first option with a one-time 2-year extension provision added in. Staff was then asked to evaluate the option of a center lane where a non-conforming structure may be used only for the then existing or more restricted use. This allows non-conforming structures to be used for the existing grandfathered use or more restricted use as long as it is not discontinued for more than 2 years. One potential issue with that is called use creep, which would be where a landowner would obtain a determination from our office that their proposed use is less intensive, but could later evolve it into something more intensive just to get them under the regulatory wire. Another drawback of this approach is that the zoning administrator is required to make a judgment call as to what a more restricted use is. Some ways we chose to address this was by collaborating with the building official regarding intensity of uses, because the statewide building code is very clear on what types of uses are more restricted than others by use code. So that easily addresses structures that are within their initial 2-year period. So the question still is, what should happen to a non-conforming structure after the use is discontinued for more than 2 years? The current drafted option allows a non-conforming structure that has not been used in over 2 years to be used only for a more restricted use. This is considered a step-down method, where if the property owner has not applied for an extension of grandfathering status and has passed their 2-year mark, the structure cannot be used for the previous existing use, but only a more restricted use. Then the question else came up. What happens when the discontinued structures are single-family dwellings and cannot be more restricted than that? Because it's likely that the majority of non-conforming structures located in the county are single-family dwellings. The solution to this, which we've done in the draft ordinance, is to indicate that the residential occupancy of a single-family dwelling is the most restricted use. This would allow the owner of the non-conforming single-family dwelling that has not been occupied in over 2 years the opportunity to use the structure only as a single-family dwelling. Another question that came up in the ordinance review was whether the same owner must pay taxes for 15 years in order to maintain their non-conforming status. After we conferred with the county attorney, it was determined the trigger is the payment of the taxes for 15 years and not whether the ownership remained the same for that 15 years. That provision protects the structures from removal, which rendered the original option virtually toothless. That would have required relocation and a variance. Although the structures wouldn't be required to be removed, nothing should stop the property owner from seeking a variance to bring it into compliance, so that provision was added in as well. The one-time 2-year extension request was added back into this draft. This will allow the property owner more time to establish the then existing or more restricted use prior to expiration, which would be a total of 4 years. There's another discussion on what discontinued actually means. Any use of the structure must be allowable, either as an existing grandfathered use or other permitted use of the zoning district. In summary, the ordinance was reworked to add an intent section, as well as address non-conforming uses, structures, and lots individually. And by revising the article, it'll be clear to make determinations relating to uses, structures, lots, and any combination of those. Planning Commission held their public hearing on the proposed ordinance on January 27th and recommended approval to the Board of Supervisors at their public hearing. Happy to answer any questions.
Have any questions for Ms. Bishop?
Because, yeah, she was starting that microphone. No, I do not have any questions. I feel like this kind of model is consistent across the Commonwealth. Am I not mistaken in making that statement?
Yes, a lot of the ordinance was pulled directly from state code.
Yeah.
Which is typically what other localities in the region have done as well.
Yeah, I feel like this is pretty consistent, and obviously, as we learn more about solar, when we get into it, essentially, this would come down to a special use permit in a lot of ways, where we get to help determine some of these locations, correct, for a large farm? Or are we gonna get that from Emily? We can talk about that then.
Are you talking about solar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah, we're gonna finish this one.
All right, cool, that's fine.
I suspect Mr. Harvey would have something to say about this. We're looking to have a public hearing on this next month.
At the board's
Yeah,
pleasure.
Yes.
for me.
And at that
At
time,
the time, we can
At
still make
that time.
changes then.
yeah, we can make changes there and Mr. Harvey can pick your brain on things
Okay.
that he's concerned about. Okay.
I was reading the solar thing. I was lost. Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion to take this to public hearing for next month?
I would.
Mr. Chairman, we have to do public. Wait, what?
Do we need a motion for
We
that?
have a resolution y'all could use, the board could use, once you hear the solar,
Okay,
Okay.
we'll combine them.
would authorize public hearing for both.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you, Dylan.
No problem.
Good afternoon, all. All right, so now we're gonna look at the solar ordinance, and this is an entire new proposed ordinance for the zoning ordinance, because we don't have a way to address solar as it is. So in 2019, Nelson County received several inquiries regarding commercial solar energy systems. Staff initially looked into the solution of adding it as a definition to the ordinance, but as we looked into it further, it became very clear that we would need to create an ordinance section for this so that we can add things like bonding and decommissioning. The initial draft of the solar energy ordinance was reviewed by the Planning Commission on October 28th. We made some changes and repeated again on November 18th, and then we moved it to public hearing on January 7th. The Planning Commission held the public hearing and recommended approval of the ordinance to the Board of Supervisors with a vote of 5-0. So the solar energy ordinance, like I said, currently solar for net metering for someone's like individual house or business, just to provide power to that structure, that's by right. This ordinance is to address things like solar farms. So, solar for profit. We separate the solar energy systems by size in this ordinance, and so we define two different types of solar systems, ones that are under an acre and then over an acre. So a small solar energy system is anything under 1 acre and meets different requirements than a large solar energy system, which would require more, like a major site plan versus a minor site plan, more oversight to it. Small solar energy systems would be permitted by right in A1, B1, B2, M1, and M2. And by special use permit in C1, R1, and R2. Now, large solar energy systems, again, they would have more restrictions and more involvement with them. They would be permitted by right in M2 only, and then by special use permit in A1, C1, M1, B1, and B2. So.
Okay.
Do we have a restriction on the definition of large?
Yeah, so their definitions are right here on the first page. A small solar energy system would be anything under 1 acre. And a large solar energy system would be anything over 1 acre.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase my question. Do we have a maximum size
Yeah, we
available on large?
We don't.
Is that something that was discussed and decided against?
No, we just, everything would be,
Especially-
yeah, everything would have to go through the review process anyway. So you could always deny something for being too large. There just didn't seem a reason to specify anything.
To the maximum.
By right, it would just be M1, right?
Yeah, M1's the only one by right, and that's also,
The least common land.
Right.
That's, yeah.
M2 is the only one by right, and that would be with the caveat that the primary use of the system is for electrical generation to be sold to the wholesale electricity markets, not for like just servicing one business or one private entity or anything like that. And they would still have to do like a major site plan approved by the planning commission and everything, like, you know.
Any other questions for Emily? Okay, Emily, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
I know this project has taken some time, so thank y'all for your work.
So, Mr. Carter, we need a resolution to have a public hearing on these two.
David's got one.
In your packet.
It should be in that little extra packet.
Put the memos from the two, on the two orders. R2108.
I got it. Thank you.
So you look for motions?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution R 2021-08, Nelson County Board of Supervisors authorization for public hearing, amendment to the Code of Nelson County, Virginia, Appendix A zoning, Article 2 non-conforming uses, Appendix A zoning, Article 22A solar energy, as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Thank you to the planning department. Great work. Great stuff.
Steve's report's getting smaller, we need to add to his list. I said, your report's getting smaller, we need to add to it, it used to be 2 pages.
Short and to the point.
We'll fill it up after this
Yeah.
budget session.
And you can always add lib, of course. Steve?
On the status of COVID-19 virus, we have been able to have at least 20 staff members receive the first inoculation. That was on February 4th. And we're working with the health department to get another group of 20 employees, which can also include the members of the board, scheduled, but we don't have any information to provide on that yet. And a correction to what I've noted here, we do have the commissioner's office has been impacted by the virus. One of the staff has contracted the virus, and because of close contact, that office is closed this week. 3 of the 4 staff have tested negative, but they're probably gonna have to be tested again because they were tested pretty early after they're realizing the initial close contact. So we're working with the IT department to put a message on the office's general phone number so that they can take messages and try to follow up. One of the staff has their laptop at home and is trying to monitor things as the week progresses. The Tide River water system, we're still waiting to get the tank down. It was rescheduled to February 19th to the 23rd due to inclement weather. The crane company didn't want to come out when it was initially scheduled, I think the first of the month, due to inclement weather. So everything else is completed other than to remove that elevated water tank. The Blue Ridge Tunnel project, we finished the fiscal projects. We're just working to close out phase 3 because it's a state and federal project, funded project. There's a significant amount of paperwork that the county has to file with VDOT to formally close the project out. And in addition to that, we're working to install fencing along Depot Lane because of the enormous amount of visitation we've seen and people just parking anywhere and everywhere. And we're hopefully, maybe sometime next week, going to be able to solicit quotes to expand the eastern parking lot to add about 25 parking spaces. And then once that's accomplished, we'll maybe look at the western parking lot. The board looked at the Parks and Rec Department's report. I think since the trail system was open in November, we've had at least 30,000 visitors to the tunnel. We have trail calendars, and we probably missed a few people, so it's been somewhat overwhelming, the number of people who, even this past Saturday, I think one of the Parks and Rec staff was up there and cars everywhere.
Wow.
Well, it is, hopefully as the board knows, it is a pretty cool thing. We're still trying to get the state agencies to confirm dates for this meeting on state and local requirements for breweries, wineries, the agricultural provisions that enable structures to be built without building permits, the concerns the board's expressed. So we're still diligently in contact with the various state agencies, and hopefully March, and maybe a work session, which, as Mr. Brown said, maybe if it is a work session, we could combine that with the 6-year plan work session. The board planning session, I sent the board an email with sort of a strategy. So we're hoping to start work on those top 5 priorities and just keep the board apprised, because ultimately we'll bring the information back to the board on the outcomes of studies, costs, et cetera, and potentially plans of finance. But then the board will have to decide if you actually want to do, or if the county is able to do this, one or all 5 of those projects. That work will take some time. The Piney River wastewater system, I reported on this previously. We've awarded a contract to Patterson Construction, who's out of Fredericksburg, to repair the primary pump station on Route 56. It's manufactured by Simco. The contract's been awarded, they've signed it, and they're not actually going to start work to the end of March. It should be pretty quick turnaround once they do start. And, so we're just happy to get this work scheduled and hopefully completed soon. The general reassessment is just still in process. Both Ms. McGarry and I reached out to the main assessor just to see if they could provide a status. And it's still too early to know what we may expect next December with respect to outcomes of the reassessment. Mr. Ings from the firm did note to Candy that some of the other localities they've been working for, they've seen an uptick in their values, but they said it's still too early to have, they just don't know yet. The budget, hopefully, we will present to the board hopefully the last week of February, or maybe probably the first week of March. We're at a point now where the initial drafts of the budget have been completed, but we need to work staff-wise to refine it and make final changes to it and then present it to the board. So we're not trying to hold it up, it just takes some more time. Questions?
So, Mr. Carter, what did we receive today in our green binders?
That is all of the agency requests. So you might want to take a look at that, like the annual budget proposals from JADLA, NACA, various state and local agencies. Yeah, we always, for several years, we put that binder together. It's hopefully an easier reference than just giving you all a whole set of documents to hold.
Good start for us. Thank you for having that for us today. Do we need to, when should we set meeting dates for our working meetings on the budget?
I would just suggest, I think Candy, maybe back in December, submitted a proposed schedule, but it seemed like it works better for the board once we have that first meeting, that y'all have consensus on a weekly schedule, 1 or 2 meetings, and coordinate your schedules. We're gonna hopefully have it in a good, sufficient condition that it's gonna be easy to work through, and of course, it's always a challenge. But if you're comfortable with that, we'll just try to target a date that works to introduce the budget, and then at that first session, the board could really set its own schedule. And years past, we presented schedules, and it doesn't seem to always work very well, because if we say Tuesday, Thursday, the board may say no, Wednesday is the only day we can do it.
So when you have that completed, you'll propose a date and we'll all get together and set the rest of the schedule?
Absolutely. That would be one of the outcomes of the first budget work session.
Any questions for Mr. Carter?
No, I'm just gonna ask for the actual spreadsheet at some point, whenever you're. Did you?
Yes, sir.
When'd you send it?
Oh, yeah.
Today.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I didn't mention that, but Candy does have a summary of all the information in the books.
Yeah, I like.
A sort of a comparative summary, as I recall. Good.
Great.
I think we're fine. Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Chairman,
Well, yes.
I probably should have spoken when we talk about new and unfinished business, but you went right into it without me realizing it.
Can we do that under other business?
Okay.
Thank you. Board reports, Mr. Barton, do you have any reports?
Social services is still without a home. It is, it has gotten money for another two positions at the social services where they have no place to put them. And they're gonna try to find a place, and they're gonna, what they've been doing for 20 years. Sooner or later, we have to deal with it. And clearly we do. And, and once, also along with that is that I want to talk about every time is the need for, for people to look, what are they called? Parents, foster parents.
Oh, yeah.
It's a continuous need. And just one or two can make a huge difference. So I just wanted to make sure we mention that again.
Yeah, I actually want to back you up on the foster parent topic. I know that's such a huge, it's always been a struggle here in Nelson, and of course, my family has a history of being part of that, and having been foster families, my father, my mother, as well as Daniel and Kate, and the list goes on. I do know, I think you get that there's now an opportunity to take the classes virtually, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'm gonna double check on that, but I think there's some foster classes that you can now take virtually, and I think that needs to be advertised more often. I know I've shared that on social media prior, but I think the more we amplify that, because our foster child population only increases every year. I don't think it's ever gone down, but maybe temporary. So I agree.
And it's a problem that has existed for decades.
Long time.
And it doesn't ever seem to get better.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Mr. Rutherford, do you have any other reports?
Mr. Chairman, I think the only piece that I have, we met with TJPDC. Obviously, we're sad to see Chip Boyle's transition as the director of TJPDC and now go to Charlottesville council city manager position. Best of luck to him there. We have some fun opportunities, obviously moving in the future on how we look at affordable housing and broadband. We're trying to look at those things more on a regional basis. And I think housing, of course, is an issue, and we struggle with it here in Nelson still. But it's important that we look at it on a regional basis because the struggles of Charlottesville and Albemarle end up being waves that hit Nelson County and our struggles of housing needs, struggle of housing supply. So I think that's going to be that's going to be an amplified topic as we go into the new year. Of course, with COVID, things have been different with obviously no foreclosures and mortgage mitigations and obviously rent relief coming in from the state. So we're seeing what that could look like over the next year, but we know it's only going to be amplified. So I think those are going to be some very big priorities going into the future with TJPDC. And beyond that, the other places I have to report with broadband, as we all know, universal hookup. And I missed the last Water Authority meeting, so that's you can tell us what happened. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Mr. Rutherford. Mr. Carr?
EMS Council did not meet this past time, but they did do a mass communication to vote on the two proposed projects for CARES Act funding. Piney River project was approved and the Gladstone project was not, and they will be presenting that, I believe, at the March meeting. It just came in recently, so it'll show up for us to discuss next month, but just want to let you know that they did discuss that EMS Council. That's all I have.
Okay. From the Planning Commission, we had a great discussion meeting with Dylan leading up to today's ordinance approvals that are going to public hearing. Planning Commission has also moved to the Board of Supervisors, which I think we'll see next month, proposal for a cell tower on Jonesboro Road, north of Cove Creek. So we can look forward to having that next month.
Was there a reason why that wasn't this month?
Just
Advertising again?
Yeah.
How can we work with that? Is it just because our meeting dates are too close?
It just depends in the history is we used to advertise them concurrently with the planning commission's meetings, or the ads would run concurrently for both meetings, but then we would historically have problems with the commission carrying the matter over, and we'd have to re-advertise. So if time permits, we try to get it in after the commission, but in this case, we couldn't meet the two public hearing days.
I think if it ever relates to a cell tower, that we should just automatically advertise.
But I want to say that Dylan is, if I recall correctly, checked with the company and they weren't deterred that it would carry over for next month, so.
Well, they might not, we are.
Approval, not to say the wrong thing, doesn't necessarily mean immediate
Sure,
construction.
right. Many cell towers have been approved and still not built.
Also, as a follow-up to the joint meeting that the Board of Supervisors had with the school board, we have a joint planning committee that will be meeting soon. I was in touch with Mr. Cheek. We have Mr. Rutherford and Mr. Parr going to be serving on that committee with two members of the school board. Let's talk about capital priorities. And we'll be doing a series of 2-on-2s with the other supervisors, and Mr. Barton and I will be meeting with two other school board members and moving forward with that. We had a great meeting and look forward to building on that relationship and working together with the schools. Appointments.
We have one new vacancy on the Region 10 Community Services Board. Diane Jacobs stepped down from the board, and we actually have an application from Patricia Heggie. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but she's stated she cannot start until May or June. So I wasn't sure. what you all would want to do with that. We do have another representative on that board, Peggy Whitehead, I believe. So we do have some representation if you all wanted to wait to approve Patricia. If you wanted to approve her now and agree that she can't start serving until May or June.
I think just keeping it open for the time being, in case
Yeah.
anybody else is interested, would be fine. Otherwise, we have a strong candidate waiting in the wings, so
I think it's appropriate.
that seemed to work out. Any board members have correspondence to share?
I did have one, actually two, and this is a question you could answer pretty quick. What is the status on the census for Nelson and us redrawing districts?
We are waiting for, confirmation from the, federal entity to move forward with that. It'll probably be, closer to third quarter this year or so.
Okay, got it.
I know that the Information Services Department is already looking at that, and Susan Moore has noted, but it's still subject to, actually doing the work that the districts may not actually change. We just have to wait and see.
Sure. See how population is.
As far as the locations of the districts.
Good. That'd be very good.
I have a question too about COVID. Who is responsible to making sure or that the people of Nelson County have vaccines available to them?
The health department,
The health department of Nelson County.
the Blue Ridge Health District, and of course, the overall state agency, Health and Human Services. Yeah, the board and North County staff are in charge of any of that. And we just helped with the location, for example, the Nelson Center is a center for inoculations. But the distribution of the vaccines, the schedule of the clinics, et cetera, are all done administratively and operationally through the health districts. We did hear, I guess, last week, one of the governor's news conferences, the state is receiving, I should have reported on this earlier, I think 23% more vaccine, but that's still not significant. A couple of weeks ago, Dr. Bonds reported, or our health district reported that for Blue Ridge Health District, there's 2,930 vaccines per week. So, yeah, that's really the bottleneck, is the availability of vaccines.
Do we have a projected reopening of the second floor here? Do we know?
The second floor.
Well, from the office closing that we have currently.
And what we discussed internally is now that we're getting staff inoculated, once everyone has been able to at least be offered to be vaccinated, we're going to start reopening everything. But it's still uncertain as to when that may happen. We've had, as I've reported, 20 staff in several departments cumulatively received the vaccine, but we still have, a large number of people to, be scheduled. And we actually have a number of people who have refused to, be vaccinated. So, but yeah, I mean, if the board wanted to reopen, we could do that. But as long as more progress can be made with the availability of the vaccines, our goal is to open the offices back up as immediately as possible.
Okay, do we have any directives?
I just want to make sure that, obviously this has been a popular topic going into the work session. Making sure that we're putting some level of priority on the comprehensive plan. Just making sure that that's a potential and making sure that's being added. I know, Steve, you mentioned that there's some money in there for it this year potentially.
Yeah, well, I've seen just the draft expenditure side. Well, I have both, of course. revenue and expenditure. As I recall, Kenny can correct me, on the requested side, there's at least 25,000. And the board may recall from the work session on the 29th of January, one of the capital project proposals was 125,000 for completion of, updating and potentially revamping the local comp plan. So we'll have all that for the board to take a look at that first budget work session. And then, we don't expect you to make decisions on everything immediately, but, we'll have that available for you, of course. Probably, we'll have a list of considerations from A to Z and what the cost proposals are, instead of, inserting a whole lot of information into the budget and showing what could be a huge deficit, and then having the board decide, oh, we're gonna cut all this out. We sort of prefer to balance the budget and show you what your ability is, and then a list of considerations that you can decide on. It makes it easier for us and hopefully for you all too.
Right.
There will be projects or different operational things in the budget, but there'll also be a lot of additional things in this consideration list.
Just making sure you ask for it, right, Dylan? Good.
I'm not sure this is a directive or it falls under the category. But from the meetings we had last week having to do with capital and schools, et cetera, we need to deal with the issue of the health department. We need to make a decision on that. And from what I see, the one negative is location of the Heritage Center. But what I thought about was the health department is not as essential, let's say, as the social services. It's centralized in its place. Plus, there are all sorts of positives that have to do with that facility being located at the Heritage Center in terms of our community and in terms of what that Heritage Center can offer our community as a whole. But what it comes down to is what other alternative do we have? So to me, it's a really positive idea to put the health center there. And I would do it no matter what. But also, we need to do something. And we could resolve this issue if we would write a little letter that says that we think it's a good idea to be at the Heritage Center. So I know Tommy's not here, and I know it's an important issue. And but I just wanted to make sure that it was on the forefront of what we were thinking about.
We can add that to the agenda for next meeting, and Mr. Harvey will be here, and it'll give us an opportunity to address it. Does that sound fair?
It sounds fair, but I just want to emphasize there's some real positive things to having that facility there. It's not just having to do with health department. And I have a second thing that I would like to address that I think is very important. And I need to ask you to do something for me. And I think our community needs a place to swim. I don't think it needs to be an indoor facility. I think it needs to be a place where the entire community of Nelson County can kind of be together and share recreation, share each other's company. And I would, if you would do for me, is find out what that would cost. We also have to find a place for it, which is also I'd like you to think about. But I'd also like, if it's fine with you, I'd like to meet with the recreation person and talk about this and find out what it would cost. Because I think it would be feasible. and it should be done as soon as possible. We've been dicking around with this thing for 20 years, and it could be a very positive thing for our community.
I'll speak to it. So I sent the board, and I'm sure you were copied, sort of a strategy via email, probably late last week, on how we would move forward at the staff level with the 5 priorities the board established on the 29th. So, and what the staff plans to do is work on those 5 priorities, as I mentioned in my report, and we will bring back to you, the board, information on each one of those projects.
But
We
within
may
the,
not work on them all.
talking about those priorities, there are some, including I think you, who believe that that had to be some sort of elaborate recreational system that would be very costly. And I'd like to see, I would like to see the costs controlled on that as much as possible in terms of a outdoor, summer only recreation area. We have to, of course, one of the things that's interesting is finding a place that is centralized in its location. And I believe that if we make it public, that we are really thinking about doing this, that we will have a lot of people who also agree with that. And possibly might suggest a place that the facility could be located. I know you think that that's not realistic, but I don't know, I'm from Nelson County,
It's not my decision. The board established priorities on the 29th that, my understanding is that's what we'll work to. And it could be that we will show the board what you're asking for and what the consensus of the board asked for.
Well, the board there was a thing about the pool and everybody put their little dot on it. But it wasn't established what that exactly meant. I mean, the priority was recreation, of course that's priority, but our particular priority.
Then you need, if I may, have the other 3 members of the board agree with your priority and tell us that's what you want us to do. Because we're gonna look at it from a broader picture perspective than just this and nothing else.
Yeah, I know that, and that's why I brought it up today.
Yeah,
Not
thank-
me, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. I'd like to add to that, including that mini feasibility study, Mr. Barton's suggestion, I think is vital for recreation in Nelson County. I also realize now, which I don't think we realized during our meeting, that combining social services and health department is maybe not a good idea, and they should be decoupled somehow. Still a priority, but not necessarily one home for both, one adjacent home or one concurrent home. The other point is that I discussed with Mr. Rutherford and Mr. Parr, again, Mr. Parr brought up the property behind Food Lion to make sure that's included in the feasibility study, because that, of course, does not necessitate
That would be
purchase of
the
new
target
land.
site. That's what we were thinking about, would be the site.
So make sure that's, given due consideration. Sure.
As I said, if I may, we won't not keep the board informed on these things.
Yeah.
We will keep you informed. I mean, we just got the priority list on the 29th and outlined the strategy to you all, I think last Friday or so. I just want to be clear, I don't make these decisions, the board does. And if you want to change them, that's certainly your perspective, but if you come to the meeting and say, I want this, you all have to decide. It's not up to me.
Well, is it all right with the board if they ask to find out what an outdoor facility would cost?
Well, so kind of how this rolls down. and how discussion works when we start to do big projects like this. It's a feasibility study. And oftentimes, when we've done this with Livingston, we've done this with many others, and you can look at other prior PERs and RFPs, you give a number of scenarios, and engineers give scenarios as to like, hey, this is what we do with this number. And then sometimes, actually, an engineer might have a better idea than us. And they'll be like, by the way, we saw this, and this might work. So what you're asking for is not inappropriate. It's fine to ask for it. But please understand that it's a number of scenarios. We're going to be given probably, I don't know, half a dozen scenarios to work with and given dollar amounts for each one. We're going to come up with some. Staff might think of a good idea that won't cost us nothing to say, hey, by the way, let's add in this or omit this. And even the engineering firm has a critical role in this, not this necessarily deciding, but they'll see some efficiencies that we don't see. And that's a healthy thing.
But this particular scenario that I'm talking about, I don't want omitted.
It's not omitted. Nobody's omitting it.
I want
Nobody's
it,
against it either.
I want it to be, I want it to see what it would cost.
Yeah, add it in there.
Mr. Rutherford said, there will be options or scenarios.
Yeah.
And with each of the projects, assuming, we can work through all 5 this year, so, we'll show you your options, what each option may cost, on a cost estimate basis, subject to bidding. And we'll also show you a plan of finance for one or all 5 projects. And then y'all can decide, is it feasible to move forward with 1, 2, 5, or none? But, we're just sort of out of the gate right now.
Yeah, no,
It's really funny because one of the things I used to say would be choice is really, they pretend that it's freedom, but really what it means is control. It's like you have a choice between Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. That's no choice at all. I'm saying what we need in Nelson County is a place where grandparents and young parents can bring their children and learn to swim and congregate with each other. And that's a really wonderful thing to have. So I think that would be a wonderful idea.
nobody's disagreeing.
If nobody disagrees, let's do it.
We're adding it to the
Wow.
feasibility. It's a
Wow.
scenario.
Thank you, Mr. Barton.
You're welcome.
Mr. Parr, anything else from you?
No, sir.
I'm done.
Mr. Rutherford? Any other business, Mr. Carter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
There was something I forgot to say.